Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Judy Blake, and I am the Leadership and Advocacy Coordinator for Family to Family Network. We are here in Houston and happy to be having another Wednesday training and thrilled to present Gittel Francis, who is with JFS Houston. This is a wonderful organization that helps people from all walks of life all over Greater Houston. They were very, very instrumental in helping families during Hurricane Harvey. And they're also very instrumental in helping families through everyday life. I'm happy to bring to you Gittel, who is a community intervention specialist, and she's also certified in mental health first aid, I believe as an instructor. Yes, Gittel?
Yeah.
Yes. And so she's going to be presenting to us on You Matter, self-care and mindfulness. And I think that this is really important for many reasons. We have all been tested these last 12 to 18 months in ways that we never thought were imaginable. And we've always said you can never pour from an empty cup. And self-care is so important. We just sometimes forget to make sure that we do take care of ourselves. And when Gittel connected with me, and I thought this would be a great subject, and little did I know how timely it would be. So please know that this is a safe space. No question is silly, and we all want to respect everyone's opinion. You can hold your questions until the end, and if you are unsure of the question you want to ask, you can always private message me, and I will be happy to share your question anonymously with the group. So Gittel, if you'd like to, let me go ahead. I forgot to make you co-host. Let me go ahead and do that. So you can go ahead and share your screen.
All right. Good afternoon.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. And thank you for spending, I guess, your first hour of the afternoon with us, or your lunch hour. I'm going to be talking to you today a little bit about self-care and mindfulness. Just remember that this is a brief introduction. If Judy would have given me 3 hours, I probably could have done more justice to it. But I'd also like to ask if you have a pen and paper, because I'm going to ask you to jot down some notes. As usual, Judy's going to be sharing the slideshow. So don't worry about taking notes straight from the slideshow. The slideshow will be there for you to, learn more information, or there's also references at the back and resources of where I got my information, and also local resources. So don't worry about that. But just if you have a pen and paper, it's helpful when we're going to be talking a little bit about self-care. Not too much work, but I'm going to ask you to do a little bit of activities with us. If you could turn on your screen, that would be amazing. Just to know that I'm here, since we're a small group, and it's nice to be able to see people. I told Judy earlier that I'm actually an extrovert, and I appreciate seeing people. Hey. Thank you so much for coming on. All right, so let's get into You Matter, self-care, mindfulness. Let's get into what we're talking about here today, okay? So the first thing I want to do is introduce myself. My name is Gittel Francis. I'm a social worker. I work at Jewish Family Service of Houston. My exact title is Community Intervention Specialist, and it's part of the Behavioral and Mental Health Service team at Jewish Family Service. A little bit in the next slide, I'm going to show you a little bit about Jewish Family Service and what we do. So what does Jewish Family Service do? And I just want you to know that it's open to the whole community. We are a United Way agency, and therefore we have many people, clients that we serve, not only Jewish clients. Jewish Family Service has behavioral and mental health services. So we have counseling. We also have a lot of groups that people participate in. Then we have my department, which is part of the community intervention team, where we go out to the community and give either mental health or suicide prevention or community literacy trainings. And the other thing that we have is we have community check-ins, that we call them, is if people need a little bit of extra help during certain times, you're able to go on our website and request that you can see a therapist 2 times for 45 minutes each for free before you sort of fill out our regular intake form. So if you're finding that you need a little extra support, or you're going through something that's a little troubling, you can always go to the website and check out the community check-ins. We have disability services. We have a great gift shop. called Celebration Company. The other thing that we do is we do case management, and it's a pretty robust case management. We have case management for seniors, disaster case management, as well as financial aid and financial literacy case managers. We have career and employment services. We do some Holocaust services and legislative affairs, and then we also have an internship program. And what we say about the interns and our internship program is we learn from them as much as they learn from us. So we have a pretty robust program with a lot of wraparound services that we offer to clients. Let's get started. I know that you've heard a lot of talk about self-care, and self-care is almost like a buzzword. But I kind of want you to think about to yourself, like, let's open ourselves up for new directions, for new explorations, and let's see if we can, in the end, succeed in surprising ourselves by learning something new. So let's open up ourselves up to new learning, new activities, and hopefully some new ideas and new tools for your toolbox. All right, Judy, I think that you may have taken my my presentation. No, I'm just joking. You said it. So what Judy said at the beginning was,
I'm so sorry.
No problem. No problem at all. It just adds to it that you can fill a cup if your cup is empty. And in the many roles and the many hats that we play in our lives, be it work responsibilities, family responsibilities, friends responsibilities, it always seems like the last person that gets taken care of or gets given attention is us. And just for you to remember that self-care is such an important aspect. And in order for you to do the things that you do, in order for you to care for others and to have your work responsibilities and to be able to do it, you have to make sure that your cup is full before you help everybody else. All right. I want to go in a little bit to talk about mental health conditions because self-care is really something that helps mental health and mental wellness. So I want to spend the next 2 or 3 minutes talking about mental health conditions, and then we'll learn about how self-care helps mental health conditions. So the difference between a sign and a symptom is when people say, do you notice any signs and symptoms of a mental health condition? A sign is something that you can see. So if I see you crying, or if I see you sleeping a lot, or whatever it is. And a symptom is something that the person feels. So you as an individual or as a helper, as somebody that notices something, you would be able to notice signs. You wouldn't be able to notice symptoms. What you do as an individual is you will pick up on symptoms. If somebody is complaining of a stomach ache, right? Or if somebody is complaining that they have a rash or that they have a headache, that's a symptom. That's something that somebody has to tell you about, okay? And signs and symptoms can be physical, they can be behavioral, and they can be psychological. So it's not just somebody who is crying all day. It could also be somebody that has a stomach ache or somebody that's feeling nervous and therefore they get a headache. So it's not necessarily something that's all behavioral or psychological. It could be physical. Our mental health affects us physically as well. And then I want to turn to your attention to the arrow that I have. It's sort of like I've tried to create like a continuum, right? And many times people don't realize that with mental health conditions, there's a lot of people that live with mental health conditions. Many times people only think of themselves as having a mental health condition if it completely incapacitates them, and therefore we go and seek professional help. But that there's also people living with mild anxiety or with moderate anxiety, and they're living very, very healthy and productive lives, as well as people with incapacitated anxiety or depression or any other mental health conditions, and they're living very, very, they're living very healthy and productive lives. So I want you to look at it as a continuum. It's not necessarily that I have anxiety and that it completely incapacitates me, but I can be living with anxiety and I can be on the earlier part of the spectrum instead of on the other part of the spectrum. And then the question that I generally get a lot during my trainings is when is it time to seek professional help? And in generally what we say as professionals in the field, that it's time to seek professional help when your mood or your emotions or your behaviors affect your ability to work. They affect your ability to carry out daily activities and also to engage in meaningful relationships. We know that study after study shows that connection, being connected to each other, being connected to ourselves, being connected to our community, our synagogue, our house of worship, or whatever it is, makes such a big difference with mental health and our overall mental wellness. So being able to engage in meaningful relationships is also very, very key. In short, if somebody says to me, when do you think it's time to seek professional help? I always give them the answers to say, when your emotions or your behaviors affect your ability to live, to laugh, and to love. So basically, it's the 3 L's. If you can't live the way that you want to live, if you don't laugh the way that you want to laugh, now, of course, you don't want to be laughed at, right? But if you can't laugh. And the other thing is if you can't love and you can't be loved, right? And that goes to saying it to the engaging in meaningful relationships and connecting with individuals. So how does self-care fit into mental health conditions? And how does self-care fit into our overall wellness altogether? So many people don't realize is that self-care is something that has to be initiated. You have to initiate it on your own. Okay, so it's something that you have to use your own tools to be able to initiate in something self-care. The other thing about self-care is how it connects to mental health conditions is that self-care is a very, very important tool when you're living with anxiety or when you're living with depression or other mental health conditions. Taking care of yourself, the act of taking care of yourself does reduce some signs and symptoms of anxiety or depression. And it is one of the tools that you can help with your overall physical wellness and your overall mental wellness as well. And I want you to think about things that I want you to write down, if you could take a minute to write down, what are some of the ways that you as an individual know that it's time that you need some self-care? What are some ways that you know that's like, oh, that's my key? Okay, write that down. Okay. So, in thinking about it, it's self-care because it's self-initiated. We have to spot the signs and symptoms in ourselves when we need it. And knowing, writing down the things that we usually know ourselves, that we usually know when it's time to take a break. And we're going to be talking about making a self-care plan. The first I want to do, though, is I want to talk to you about self-care and the different self-care categories. Many people think that self-care is like binge watching Netflix for 40 hours over a weekend, right? Or that self-care is like going to the pizza store and buying yourself the best pizza or whatever it is, right? But self-care actually could be on many, many different categories, right? So you could pursue intellectual self-care by reading a book, right? You could have occupational self-care. And, the bosses, when I do these presentations for these big companies, the bosses love me because I say, what's an occupational self-care? Creating yourself goals at work, hitting your benchmarks, right? So creating your occupational goal, if you want to have a raise or if you want to get a promotion, working hard towards that, taking care of yourself in that way. Physical self-care is relatively easy. Going for a walk, going for a hike, exercising, making yourself a healthy lunch, right? Or making yourself lunch instead of just going to the refrigerator and like, oh, I'll have my cold leftovers from yesterday just because I didn't prepare anything else, right? And then there's the spiritual side of self-care, attending a house of worship or attending a synagogue or doing some meditation. Anywhere or anything that you do to connect on a higher power. Financial, we all have our financial goals. We all have our budgets and setting ourselves self-care for financial. Maybe we're saving up for a vacation that we can finally take because, the world is opening up slowly. Or maybe we're saving up for a rite of passage or getting married or whatever it is, but those are financial goals and that's self-care as well. And then the other thing that is often overlooked is the communal portion of self-care. So when I say communal portion of self-care, what I'm referring to are the volunteer opportunities, the giving blood, the things that you do because you're part of a community. That's also self-care. And that also essentially makes you feel better, right? So the thing about self-care is that in the end, it's going to make you feel better. And these are things that you can do to engage yourself in order to feel better, okay? All right, daily self-care plan. So we all have these things, right? That are like connected to us, like I would say 24/7, you know, whatever. And they don't last for more than about 12 hours, or depending on if they're new, maybe 20 hours, right? Before you have to charge them. Human beings are no different, right? And we as human beings need daily recharging, okay? So if you look at the picture, we don't want to have our battery on low and then it's not working. And then there are those super uber individuals that still use their cell phone while it's connected to the wall. So while I'm engaging in self-care, and I can say I've done it before because gosh, I have to send that last email, right? So while you're engaging in that self-care, you're still doing something that's going to take it away from you, okay? So self-care is daily, right? The other thing about self-care is, back to the binge watching of Netflix, there are things that you can do that is part of your self-care plan that are shorter, and then there are longer. So you work during the day, you don't have time to go on a 5-hour hike, right? And you don't have time to watch all your Netflix and to do all the things or take a 2-hour bath, right? You may not have that time. But there are things that you could do for shorter, and there are things that you could do for longer. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Okay, take out your pen and paper, and I'm going to ask you to think about a time when you got something new, a cell phone, they're all expensive, especially if you want to get the super Uber ones, right? Or let's say a new car, or let's say a new dress for something for an occasion that was coming up, right? What's the first thing that you do is you read the care label, right? And it says, hey, wash, don't hang to dry, or hang to dry, iron, warm iron, dry clean only, right? Or your cell phone, you know that you have to charge it before you first use it, and then you have to charge it when when the charge runs out. As an individual, we don't come with neatly packaged care labels. I remember when I took my first son home from the hospital, it's 16 years now. And I remember thinking, like, they said I have to feed him every 2 hours, but that's it? Like, there's nothing else, there's no other instructions that I have. And it would be so easy and nice if human beings came with care labels. So what I'd like you to do is, as an individual, I want you to write down 2 or 3 items or 2 or 3 sentences that would be your individual care label. Okay, go ahead and take 3 minutes to write down your care label. Okay. So now that we are starting to think of our care label, or starting to think of us as individuals and the things that we need and what we need to get ourselves fully charged, the next thing I want you to do is I want you to write down, based on your care label, and think about it, this is something that has to be done daily, self-care. I want you to think about, and I want you to write down ideas that you can do that interest you for shorter time self-care that you can do when your days are shorter, when you're working, and also for longer time self-care that you can do either when you're on vacation or when you have the weekends for longer time. So write down 2 or 3 things that you could do for shorter time and 1 or 2 things that you can do for longer time. Okay, I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. We're actually making a self-care plan right now for you. You don't even know that yet, right? So we have our care label, right? We're thinking about, and we don't have a lot of time, but I really want you to, the reason why I'm sharing the slides is because I really want you to go back and think about what your care label says. Because most of us don't realize that it's just as important to know what makes us happy as it is to know what makes us sad. We all know the things that make us upset, right? And I could come over to you and I could say, what really, really gets to you? And I'm sure you guys can list me a litany of things that gets to you. But when I come to you and I say, what really makes you happy? It's a lot harder to figure it out, okay? And when you're creating these ideas for self-care, when you're creating the care label instructions, you're creating for yourself a happy list. You're creating for yourself a list that has to be, that's meant for you, okay? So we discussed daily recharging. We discussed shorter and longer time. The other thing that I want to talk to you about is mindful, and we're going to be doing a little bit of mindfulness later on. But self-care, and we know this, that if we do something without mindfully doing it, it sort of escapes us. I remember when I was a kid, I was very gregarious and precocious. And I heard an ad on the radio that said, if you buy Geico, you'll spend 15% or more, right? You save. So I told my mom, you could save 15%. So she says, like that. So I said, I'll call Geico. You be right here. So she gave me all the information. I called Geico. I said, you just save 50%. What are you going to do with the extra $200 a year? So she said, it's going to fly away from me. Like, we know that when we budget, right? We always have budget extras. And where do those extras go? We don't even know where it goes. And it's the same thing with doing something self-care. I can make myself a salad for lunch, and it could escape me if 1, I'm on the phone while I'm eating lunch, or 2, I don't realize that. I don't stop and say to myself, I'm going to take an extra 5 minutes to make myself a hot lunch, let's say, and mindfully know that it's going to make me feel better when I'm done. It's something that I can do for myself. Because we're doing things for ourselves all day without realizing. Taking a hot shower, spending an extra 2 minutes in the shower, or being in bed for an extra 10 minutes in the morning on your phone before you get up. Those 10 minutes, you're gifting to yourself. But if you don't think about the gift that you're giving yourself before you get into it, it just escapes you. So when we are taking short time self-care breaks, or when we are doing things for ourselves, that we go into it mindfully, knowing or feeling that we're going to feel better when we're doing it. We're doing it in order to end up feeling better, okay? And we talked about self-initiating. The other thing that helps a lot with self-care is something called gratitude journaling. It's something that you sort of write things that you're grateful for every single day. And that's just an idea that I have for like a shorter self-care thing. To write down 1 or 2 or 3 things that you're grateful for every single day. I actually did a gratitude challenge for 21 days with a group of people, and it was fantastic. It changes you. And the MRI studies show that it changes your brain, that you're happier. So that's an idea of what I have for like a shorter time, is if you sit down every morning and you write 2 or 3 things that you're grateful for, and you write them down. And that's the way you're mindfully creating your entire day in a more positive direction. Okay, anyway, let's get back on. All right, so I wanted to show this to you. I think it's fantastic. I did it with this because July 4th is coming, so we're all feeling very patriotic. The website page is on the top, right? And what it is you could create yourself a bingo card, right? And I encourage you to look at some of the self-care things that you did, the longer self-care and the shorter self-care. And I encourage you to make your own bingo card, print it out, put it on your fridge, put it on your desk. You don't realize that when you're feeling stressed and you're at your desk and you're sitting at your computer, or you're in your refrigerator or in your bathroom mirror, that you could say, wow, let me give myself 3 minutes to deep breathe. And your whole day is different. And these are the things that you do for shorter term self-care, because we can't always take a nap and we can't always get out in nature, but we can control our breath and we can control practicing kindness or doing something new. These things are easier for us to do. Okay, so I encourage you to do that. All right, what's next? With your care label, it's really, really best if you share it, you find a buddy, right? And you share it with a buddy. Why? What's the point of sharing your plan? One is you could keep an eye on each other, right? You each know what the other person needs, right? I have a coworker that, she knows that I got to take a walk around the office sometimes just to get out a little bit and meet some people and talk to some people. And when I'm getting stressed, she'll say, hey, want to take a walk around the office? You'll feel a lot better. And that's the reality of the reason why you want to share your self-care plan with your spouse, your partner, whoever it is, your work buddy, whoever it is. You want to set up times to check in on each other. You want to listen to their experiences and recognize their accomplishments, even if it's small one. And most importantly, especially if you're in a work setting, especially during the pandemic, you want to monitor each other's workloads. And you want to monitor, even if you're doing it socially, you want to encourage the other person to take breaks. Sometimes, and you know this, sometimes we get so caught up in the stress that we're in that we can't even think, let me go walk around or let me go take a drink of water. But if you have that buddy and you say, hey, Judy, I'm feeling really, really, really stressed out. And Judy says to me, what did you do for yourself today? I know that when you do 3 minutes of mindful breathing, it helps you. I could say, wow, I didn't even think about that, because I was so wrapped up in my stress that I didn't even get a chance to think about that. So very, very, very important, if you're doing this with coworkers or if you have friends, share it with somebody so that they can be your partner, and encourage them to share theirs with you as well, not to make it just one-sided. Okay, it's important to remind yourself that it's not selfish to take breaks. The needs of other people are not more important than your own need and your own needs for well-being. Very important to know that when you work all the time, it doesn't mean that you're going to make it your best contribution. And also, as much as we think that we're irreplaceable, there's other people that can step in our response, right? Like you can go on vacation and the world won't collapse. But there's other people that can step in and help you out too if you need a break, right? Okay, so that's sort of the self-care piece. So the way that we did it is we have a self-care plan, right? We're thinking about our care label, we're thinking about our longer, and we're thinking about our shorter. And now I want to introduce you to the concept of mindfulness. And mindfulness relates to self-care because it's one of the things that we can do for 2 or 3 minutes longer if you have, to practice deep breathing and to relax yourself and to be conscious, according to the dictionary, to be conscious or to be aware of something. And I know I discussed it a little bit with self-care, to do it mindfully, but it's also a way of relaxing ourselves and putting some more positive into our bodies. Okay. So I love this picture. Mindful. So the person's walking his dog. Essentially, they're in the park because there's some trees. The sun is shining. And what's the guy thinking about? His car, his kids, everything that's going on, his computer, his work, the podium, and all that. And the dog is saying, I'm in the park. Look, the sun is shining. I got 4 trees around me. Now I think about when I do mindfulness. So I have a 6-year-old son. And when I started making these presentations, I realized that walking with children and showing them what's going on outside, saying, look, the trees, look, the sun is shining, it keeps you more mindful. So even if you're not walking with a kid or if you're not walking with a dog, make believe you're walking with a kid and you're trying to show them your world. And it will free your mind from all the things that you're worried about, right? And all the things that are stressing you out, and you'll be able to focus on what's around you. And it will relax you. It will make you feel better. Okay. So is our mind full, or are we being mindful? Okay. Tip number 1 for mindfulness. Okay. Practice focusing on one thing at a time. Okay. So if you're walking, focus on your walking. Focus on the way that your feet feel when you hit the pavement. Focus on the feeling of the air around you. Okay, don't do this in unison because it's way too hot. But I'm just saying, right? Focusing on one thing at a time. Or if you're eating, if you're taking a shower, right? Taking a shower, feel the water on you, feel the warmth of the water or the coolness, whatever it is. But don't worry about everything else. I promise you, after your shower or after you take a walk or you finish eating, it's going to come back to you, by the way. It's not like, oh, my worries are going to evade my mind and they're not going to come back to me. But you're going to be better equipped to deal with them, right? So anyways, you have 10 minutes that you take a shower with. Why don't you appreciate those 10 minutes in the shower instead of thinking about all your worries? Or why don't you, another very helpful thing to do, a lot of people's minds race, especially when they're stressed out. Staring at a lit candle, very, very, very helpful. I'm Jewish and I light candles every Friday night. And when my kids are being a little rowdy, I say, sit down and watch the candle. And it just relaxes them because your mind focuses on the flame, the flickering flame, and it doesn't focus on everything else around you. Okay, so here are some suggestions. But the main tip is to practice focusing on one thing at a time. And even if it's just for 2 or 3 minutes, don't think about anything else and then come back to what you were thinking about. Tip number 2, so important. And we know this. It's just a question of if we can actually do it. Unplugging, a couple hours a day, a couple hours a week. I love the saying, the news, and it's made to make us feel certain ways. I love this quote from Theodore Roosevelt. He says, comparison is the thief of joy. And what we're doing when we're on social media or what we're watching the news, or we're constantly comparing ourselves to others. And the more we can unplug, the more joy we'll feel. I don't want my joy to be thieved or be taken away. I want to practice being able to unplug so that I can be okay and then I'll feel better. Okay. The third tip that I have for you is, this is easier said than done. Okay. But I'm going to suggest it to you anyway. To think about yourself almost like in 3D. I mean, we're all 3D, obviously, right? But to think about yourself as if, let's say you get angry, or let's say you're sad, or let's say you're glad, or let's say you're mad, whatever it is, that the feeling that you're having right then and there, the feeling of stress, is not the sum total of all your thoughts and feelings. Okay, so if you're feeling stressed, it doesn't mean that every feeling that you're ever going to have until then was stress, and every feeling that you're ever going to have in the future is stress. That you could sort of look at yourself, and I'm just saying at the bottom, you could sort of create yourself an awareness and observe yourself as you're experiencing the stress or the thought, and come from yourself from a point of curiosity instead of from a point of judgment. Say, I'm feeling right now nervous. I wonder why I'm feeling nervous. Let me observe the reasons why I'm feeling nervous. Let me be curious about the way that I'm feeling, because we're not the sum total. My stress is not everything that I am, or my anger or my sadness is not everything that I am and everything that I'm gonna be. So I like this little this little picture at the end, is that the mind is going to do what it wants. It's gonna send in a whole bunch of data and feelings and emotions. You want to just observe it gently, and you want to observe yourself, and you want to, essentially what you want to do is you want to help yourself with your observations. Okay, so okay, the next thing that we're going to do right now is, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I put these on here for you. They all could be done in 3 minutes, right? They're 3-minute mindfulness exercises, and there's directions for them. I'm going to show you the full body scan, and I'm going to ask you to participate in it with me. It's 3 minutes long. It's guided, so we'll be able to do it together, and we're going to talk about it afterwards. Okay, hold on one second. I just have to get it. All right, there you are in big. Hold on. Come on, computer, work. Okay. Judy, I'm going to ask you, if you see and hear it, just give me a thumbs up, okay, when I start it.
Will do.
I don't know why it's not. Here we go.
Fly with Abel and Phi. Body scan meditation. Sit in a comfortable position and bring attention to your body. Close your eyes if that's comfortable for you. You can notice your body seated wherever you are, feeling the weight of your body on the chair or on the floor. Take a few deep breaths. Breathe in through your nose. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out through your mouth. 4, 3, 2, 1. Breathe in through your nose. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out through your mouth. 4, 3, 2, 1. Now bring your attention to the top of your head. Sense this area. What do you feel? Stillness or a feeling running through your hair? Breathe, and as you breathe, relax the top of your head. Continue to breathe and move your attention to the side of your head in your ears. What do you sense? Do you hear anything? Now bring your attention to the neck and throat. Let them be soft. Relax. Soften your jaw. Let your face and facial muscles be soft. Smile softly and gently. Notice your back against the chair. Bring your attention into your stomach area. If your stomach is tense or tight, let it soften. Take a breath. Notice your hands. Are your hands tense or tight? See if you can allow them to soften. Notice your arms. Feel any sensation in your arms. Let your shoulders be soft. Bring your attention to your legs and your feet. Feel your feet touching the ground and making a connection with it. Now notice your whole body present. Take one more breath. Be aware of your whole body as best you can. Take a breath, and then, when you're
We lost you after that part.
It basically just said when you're finished, you can open your eyes. All right. How you guys feeling?
Relaxed.
A little better? Okay, let me call back on the slideshow. And we're gonna move on. Okay. So the full body is what we did over here, the fourth exercise. But these, hold on one second. I have to unoptimize it. Sorry. So you can actually see it. Okay. Can you see it? Awesome. All right. So the one that we did is called the full body, but there's other relaxing exercises. And think about this. That was 3 minutes long, or 3 minutes and 12 seconds or something. So your entire day could be different with the 3 days exercises. Okay. What I wanted to tell you now about self-care. It's hard, especially when we've got so much things going on. And when the regular saying is like, I got 99 problems and self-care isn't one of them, that your 99 problems will feel less, and you'll feel like a less load if you do practice self-care. And I really like this quote from Dr. Martin Luther King. because sometimes we can't see the full staircase, but we have faith that doing one thing for ourselves, that taking that first step is going to lead you to eventually seeing the full staircase. All right. So that concludes our presentation. And what I want you to write down is I want you to write down 3 things. Judy, check out the time. It's pretty incredible. I want you to write down 3 things. Okay. I want you to write down one thing that you learned sort of from your head, one feeling that has changed in your heart. And if you think about your legs, one thing that you will do differently when we're done with this presentation. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open it up for question, answers, and comments, but I want to show you the rest of the slide deck so that you know what's there. Okay. So these are the professional referrals that I told you about, Jewish Family Service and some other outpatient mental health clinics. When we talked about mental health and seeking professional help, I want to make sure that you have it. The other thing is these are references of where I got the information, or if you want to have further research and study. And that's basically the end of the slideshow.
Gittel, thank you so much. That was really great. And it's hard because when you and I were chatting before I let people in, I was sharing with you that no one ever usually calls me because they're happy. They have a problem, they're in crisis, they're having trouble finding resources, trouble getting support. And I can hear the angst in people's voices, be it moms, dads, grandmothers who are taking care of their grandchildren, or other community members. I have other nonprofits that call me and ask for support. And it really is important, because if we don't take care of ourselves, we can't help other people. And everyone on this call either is involved in an organization that helps others, is a parent of a loved one with a disability, or is in the community trying to serve others. And it is just so important that we take care of ourselves so that we can help others. Before I get to the questions that people private message me, would anyone like to unmute themselves and ask a question?
I have a question.
Catherine, go ahead.
Yes, when I try to do the relaxation part with a video, when I closed my eyes, then suddenly I started to cry. I don't know, that is normal because I feel it, that sensation, and I was like, oh, it's supposed to relax or to make me sad. I don't know what is happening.
To me, I think it was great that you cried, but Gittel can answer that question, because that meant that you really were in the moment, and that's sort of a release. In many ways, it's cathartic. Gittel?
Right. Yes. So I haven't had that experience, and I don't, I'm not familiar with people that do, but I think that many times with all the many hats that we wear, a parent or, helping people in the community, we never think about giving ourselves something. And when you start breathing and the emotions just overwhelm you, because you realize that you too are a person, and you too are feeling that you're exhausted and that you want to take some time for yourself. The other thing that I would suggest to you, Catherine, is not here and not now, but when you get a chance, I'd like you to do it again and follow the link and really, really be curious with yourself and really understand, for yourself, why is it that you're crying and why is it that you have these emotional feelings. The other thing that I want to tell you is what we like to say with mental health and stigma and stuff is that normal is a setting on a dryer, right? Or a washing machine. And asking yourself, am I normal for being this way? Almost sounds like a judgment. So think to yourself as, where could this curiosity lead me? And don't worry about if you're normal or not. Worry about trying to figure out and trying to do for yourself.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Sure.
And Catherine, if there's anything that, we can ever do at Family to Family Network, this sort of ties into one of the questions that I got. Someone had sent me a message that said, you had mentioned about 2 free sessions. How does someone go about pursuing that?
Okay, so what I'll do is I could put the link of our website, jfshouston.org. And if you want, Judy, I could send you you'll email it to them. I could
Yes.
send you the exact link. But if you go at jfshouston.org and you look at the department that I'm part of, the Behavioral and Mental Health Services, you will see somewhere that it says click for the free sessions. But I'll send you the direct link. I can find it now, but I want to engage in this conversation. I'll send it to you later.
Wonderful. No, that would be
Yeah,
great.
sure.
That would be great. Another question. With the pandemic and all that has happened this last year, it is very challenging to get back out into the community and to pursue relationships. What do you think are some baby steps that I could take to get myself engaged back into the community?
So that's an excellent question. Some of the things that I would tell you to do is, first of all, you're not alone. Many people are feeling this way. Sometimes it helps to know that it's not just you. The other thing that I would say is to start very small, taking baby steps, and judging for yourself what those mean, because everybody's baby steps mean something else. And the other thing that I suggest with somebody is find a buddy to do with. So I'm gonna say find a buddy for your self-care. Find somebody that's sort of in the same place that you are, that you could do things together with, or either not even do things together with that, but also to discuss with you your feelings so that they understand. And the other, I think that thing that's important is to start small, but also to start soon. Because many times, if we don't challenge ourselves to start something quickly, there's a lot of procrastination and there's a lot of reasons why not. And then, like I said earlier to Catherine, is to really figure out what it is that's holding you back. I know that during the pandemic, health and safety of yourself and safety of others and safety of our parents and our grandparents and our families was paramount, right? But now, hopefully, if we're vaccinated and we're following the CDC guidelines, then there may be other things that are holding you back from getting back into it, and really just to be honest with yourself. But definitely to start small and to start soon, and don't do everything so quickly, but just be able to sort of do it one step at a time.
No, that's great advice. That's great advice. If anyone would like the PDF slides that Gittel will send me, please feel free to email me. I had just those 2 questions, so I think we're good there. If you also could please complete the survey. I'm going to put it in the chat box again. It's very, very important that you complete the survey because I will forward those results to Gittel as well. They are anonymous. And we want you to be honest because the way that we learn, it's important and it allows us to grow. And I love this topic. I just think it's so important because I know for me, I could watch reruns of certain shows and that's my relaxation time and that's my go-to place. And it's wonderful for me. And sometimes I watch comedy and sometimes I watch Law and Order because I'm a huge, whodunit kind of person. But you really have to find what works for you. And sometimes it's amazing what 5 or 10 minutes can even do in the midst of a busy day. But I get that that's hard to do. I'm a single parent. Many of you know that. My sons are 29 and 26. And while, yes, they're adults, I'm still very involved in their lives. My 26-year-old has disabilities, so he's still with me. And it's not something that we all envision at this point in our lives. But I think that you work through it and you rely on others and you get the support that you need. Because if you don't, you will be the one calling me saying, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And I think it's also really important to have a plan in place. When you have a plan, I think you feel a little bit more secure. And sometimes it could just be writing out your schedule for the day or what your goals are for the week. And then you can see what you've accomplished, because life is so overwhelming. Gittel put the link to request for a support session, and I encourage you to do that. 2 free sessions can really answer a lot of questions for you, and they can let you know, I imagine, Gittel, do you need further help? Or is this something that is just a phase that you might be going through, and a lot of people are going through it? And they can guide you on that.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
Does anyone have any other questions? I know, Marianne, you unmuted yourself before.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's not so much a question, more as an observation. And as
Sure.
mentioning, I think especially, I think stress affects everybody, but I think especially for special needs mother, especially when their kids are younger and they're trying to deal with all the issues and the demands of raising them and trying to address their needs, I think a lot of people forget about their own needs. I think it takes a crisis to come to that realization that you do have to take care of yourself, and you can't put yourself last all the time. I think most of us, a lot of us, tend to do that. Any advice for special needs parents that would be different maybe than just regular parents?
So the only advice that I would have, other than like this typical support, self-care support, is definitely having a plan in place. And I don't know if this is the first thing you talk about, Judy, but definitely having a plan in place for other people to step in for you, to be able to, because I know we get that a lot. Also, I get that questions. I one time did a session with people that were living with parents with Alzheimer's, and it was the same thing. Having that, like, let's say, that you have somebody coming from 3 to 5 every day to take over. So what you're going to do with those 3 to 5, go shopping if you can go shopping, but also scheduling yourself some time for self-care. Because if you're on the clock 24/7, you're not going to have the time. And that if you cram everything in those 2 hours, that you're probably not going to find the time also. And the other thing that I would say is thinking about the little things that you could do, even when you are in the company of somebody with special needs, your child, whoever it is. You can take them for a walk outside, and then thereby that gets you self-care as well. But it's a slippery slope though, because if you're always going to be doing your self-care with other people, then it's not really self-care. But what I'm saying is that you could sort of sneak it in there. Like I said, when I'm taking a walk with my son, I'm showing him the tree and the cardinals outside, then that helps me a little bit with my mindfulness. But if all the time I'm walking with them, that's not good either. So sort of find times outside your direct care with them, but also find times during your direct care with them that might not necessarily do it for you 100%, but could do it for you 70 or 80%, and it's more helpful than 0.
And I think that's a great answer, Gittel. And I think it's also really important to have that circle of support for yourself. And Marianne, we talk about it as parents, and we do it for our children about scheduling their lives and making sure their needs are met. But I think that having that circle of support for us as parents, as caregivers, is really, really important. I remember when my kids were young, I would trade off with another friend, so that one afternoon she would watch my son and another afternoon I would watch hers. And that really helped a lot. But I think that having a circle of support that people can rely on is so important, not so much when things are going well, but even more so when they're not going well. And it's all part of having that plan in place. But yeah, when you have a kid with disabilities, there's no doubt it is certainly more challenging. I'm glad you brought that up, Marianne.
And then
Any
also,
other?
I mean, just the one thing that I want to just remind you, Marianne, and everyone else on the call, that it's so important for us to know what we could do for ourselves to make us happy. I can tell you, I know Judy could probably tell me 100 things that she could do for Ryan that can make him happy. But then I ask you, like, what do you do for yourself? And it's kind of like, whatever. But knowing that, you know,
Yeah.
we wish our spouses or our partners or the people that we're sharing our lives with, our friends, would just automatically know that about us, but they don't. So
I think it's hard for some people to give themselves permission to be able to do that and take that time.
That's
Yeah.
right.
yeah,
That's right.
yeah,
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt.
sure.
Thank you all so much for joining us today. Gittel, thank you, thank you, thank you. Look forward to hopefully seeing you in the community soon. I hope
Sure.
so. And
Yeah.
many thanks to all of you for joining us. I know that you have very busy lives, busy schedules, and you are invited to so many webinars. I appreciate you taking the time to join us today. We are taking a 3-week break because given the holiday and a lot of times people vacation in July, and our next presentation is going to be on July 14th. And Kim Torres is going to be talking with us. She is with the Houston Airport System, and we get this a lot. What accommodations can be made for people with disabilities in the Houston Airport System? There's apps, there's things you didn't know about, and she will be joining us, and we're calling her presentation Come Fly With Us. So, so please feel free. I will be sending everyone a flyer, and thank you all so much. Ureli, it is my pleasure. I hope that you're doing well, and many thanks to all of you for joining us. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.